Thousands of Starbucks baristas are on strike today for a one-day work stoppage, claiming the coffee chain is refusing to fairly negotiate with their union. Now, today's strike is taking place in more than 200 cities across the countries, and the union says that it's its largest one to date. For more on this, we're joined by Setyan of Wedbush Securities, who has a neutral rating on the shares. And Nick, when you think about the actual number of stores here, it's pretty small relative to Starbucks' footprint. But how do you see this potential strike and potentially more strikes to come impacting Starbucks?
I don't see much of an impact, Katie, frankly. I mean, we've seen it for a couple of years now. It's indirectly impacting Starbucks' decisions in terms of investment in their labor force. It has by far industry-leading comp for its labor, including benefits that are unmatched. And so I am a little surprised that the unionization movement continues to move on, given the fact that Starbucks is compensation is quite frankly unmatched in the restaurants, peer set.
And so, Nick, maybe not too much of a hit from this strike, but let's say that they become more widespread and more frequent. How are you thinking about what that could mean for Starbucks labor costs overall?
Frankly, I don't think it's going to matter too much. I mean, Starbucks' labor costs continue to increase. Self-propelled, self-investment, self-driven investment. Again, I mean, next year their guidance is inclusive of about a third of the free cash flow savings, going back into investments into labor. Starbucks has historically always invested in their labor force, in higher wages, in benefits, in training, and they're going to continue to do so. If you think about the trajectory of EPS growth, of EBITDA growth, it should have been much higher. Historically, it should be much higher given their unit growth rates, given the mid to high single-digit same-store sales growth. It's not higher because of the continuous investments in labor, unionized or not.
When we talk about Starbucks, the company has told investors it plans to meet its growth targets by improving efficiency at its cafes. And a lot of that has to do with having its current staff do a lot more, taking care of mobile orders, taking care of the point of sale purchases as well, doing more than perhaps what they thought they were being hired to do. What does that do in terms of its ability to attract talent?
Well, if you go back a couple of years during COVID, the staff did have to do quite a bit more just because of the staffing constraints across the industry. And that was one of the reasons why the unionization, efforts actually got some tailwinds. Over the last 2 years, actually, I'd say over the last year and a half, particularly, Starbucks has made an extra effort to make sure some of those, constraints on labor, some of those pressures on labor overtime, et cetera, having to do too much, are being addressed. So a lot of those efficiency efforts don't necessarily have, to do with, each barista having to do more. It has a lot more to do with automation, et cetera. And so, they're bringing in new coffee machines, for example, that can make a better cup of coffee much faster, and so on. And so that's what a lot of this, efficiency efforts have to do to actually increase throughput, to make those turnaround times faster, not necessarily to increase the responsibilities of the baristas, but to actually reduce the responsibilities of a given barista.
All right. Well, thank you for explaining that. The other thing that Starbucks is putting a lot of emphasis on is its rewards program, pledging to double its 75 million rewards members in over 5 years, in part by adding more partners to the rewards program in the finance industry and in the hospitality industry. How much upfront investment might that require? Does that cause you to, fine-tune your models right now in any way?
Frankly, I'd give a thumbs up to any incremental investment in their loyalty program. The loyalty customer spends much higher in terms of, the relative to the non-loyalty customer. Their frequency is much higher. So, any incremental spend that drives, incremental loyalty usage is a very, very high return on investment. So, no one on the street's going to frown on incremental investment in labor.